Good day everyone and welcome to my weekly live stream where we discuss about the latest techniques and tools in the industry of design and code. So today is really exciting because I'm going to show you how to create beautiful presentations for your app for whatever product that you're working on. And this is especially important in the day and age of today where we have to sort of present everything on social networks, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You have to know how to present your product in a way that it is exciting. And the techniques involved are pretty easy, where I'm going to show you today. So we're going to use Figma for sure. And I like Figma because it has a really strong community. So if you look at a design like this one, we have a little bit of text, we have a background, and then we have the UI, but it's spread into different components, and you're also applying some perspective. So this is pretty cool. You have so many ways to present your app. So for example, you can have a real iPhone mockup, and again, another background. And then you can use like a simpler technique, which is just a simple rotation, a little bit of adding some logos and some flavors, some colors. And yeah, we're going to be exploring all of that. By the way, before I forget, it's important to understand that we're trying to start everything from scratch. And so anyone can follow these live streams, whether you have very little experience or you have a lot of experience, because I try to focus on the new techniques. And another thing that I want to mention is that we started enabling super chats. For those who don't know what super chat is essentially if you want to support the channel, this is a system on YouTube. And so we try to focus more on the system on YouTube and be very specific to YouTube so that we can embrace their system. And one of those systems is called a super chat. And essentially you can donate some money to support the channel that you love because you enjoy the content, you want to see more of that content. But most importantly, I want to give something back. So let's say you have a really important question. So you can do the super chat, and like that, it's highlighted in the comments section, so I can see right away. And I'm going to be able to answer your questions. If you want to do UI reviews at the end of the stream, so for example, if you have a design, you want to get some feedback from me, so send me a super chat, and I will make sure to do a UI review of your design. Just provide the link, and that would be awesome. Again, totally optional. I'm just saying that because we want to take this YouTube platform to the next level by really embracing their system so that we can bring more of these videos to you. So as usual, if you enjoy these live streams, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because we do these every single week at 3 p.m. And every single time we try to bring really cool topics, and I try to show you from step 1 to step 20 to step 50, and I feel like this could be really exciting for a lot of people. Let me just fix my camera first. All right, so let's get started, and let's take a look at what we're going to be covering today. As usual, we have the topics discussed. At first, we're going to talk about the resolution. So we're going to kind of like organize this in ways so that we can take a design and then we can present it for YouTube, Twitter, and then we can present it for Instagram for a more square resolution, or Dribble, which is 800 by 600. And then we're going to look at how we can compose and rotate the content a little bit. Let me just make my camera a little bit smaller here. All right, great. So first of all, you want to be sure to pick the best screens that represents the app that you're trying to design. So the home screen, the detail screen, the onboarding screens, the account screens. So think of it as kind of like presenting your app, whether you're doing it on a keynote presentation or you're doing it on um, on the App Store where you have like multiple screens, and sometimes people stitch the screens together. They have like a very long design, and then they stitch everything together against using sort of like these templates, if you will. So the screen itself is a layer and it's a card, and then you have some text to explain what each screen is doing. So the techniques that I'm showing today is going to apply to all of those scenarios, and essentially you this is a really important skill because you can apply it everywhere, right? Presentation is everywhere. Whether you're making a web design or UI design or an app design, you have to know how to compose those screens and use those screens to share it across different social networks. And if you look at the design like this one, it's the same composition. You have the text. What is different is the text and the menu that is added. And the rest is just the composition of your presentation, the background, and without the interactions itself. And so, as usual, also we provide the source file. So this entire file here I'm going to be sharing for our pro members on DesignCode, where you're going to be able to download all of these, including the wallpapers, which is all in layers, all vectors. So this is created by our really talented team of designers, and everything is in layers, so you can see, you can customize, you can pick the elements that you want, so you can compose your screen, your cover image using our beautiful wallpapers. And the same with these ones. You can move them around, you can change the colors, and we love kind of abstract images because they can fit really well within any context, any presentation that you want. And I think this is really valuable for a lot of people. So again, this is going to be available to our pro members, and we provide these also for Angle. So what is Angle? Angle is a huge library of mockups. So this is also really useful because you can present your app, and we have different compositions. So we have a lot of devices. I'm going to cover some of these so that you can save a lot of time. You don't have to recreate these templates, these devices from scratch, and it's all vectorized. So every single keyboard element is a vector, and it's all gradient and some texture sometimes. So we spend a lot of time providing these resources so that you can create beautiful, beautiful presentation for your app, your website, and for promoting whatever products that you have. And so we also create a lot of compositions for you. So not just the device itself, but these compositions, such as these ones, you can just present your app. And again, optional. I'm going to show you how to do things from scratch anyways, but if you want to save time, you want to add more flavor, you can definitely use templates like Angle. And we're going to also take a look at different plugins from the Figma community, such as QDAT, which is what allows us to create these 3D transform that we can create for this beautiful presentation here. And it's fairly easy to do. I'm going to show you that during this live stream. We're going to take a look at different decorations as well, and how to create some elements, such as this one, where you have like confetti, you have waves, you have like multiple instances of the same layer. So this is kind of like looping multiple times to create a pattern, and this is very cool. So I'm going to show you that. It's very easy to do. You can also have blobs. And finally, we're going to take a look at the different inspirations that we can use to compose our app. So, if you've been to Instagram, right, like most of us are going to be looking and following a lot of designers, and you're going to see, designers kind of showing their apps, showing inspiration. And those are the techniques that we're going to be covering today. As you can see, it's fairly easy to do, and the difference is a lot of people don't realize that is just showing the screens and kind of like composing it in a way that seems not cluttered, and add a little bit of flavor, a little bit of colors, a little bit of composition, a little bit of drop shadows to create beautiful presentation. And sometimes using some different layouts to the left, to the right. So there are a lot of techniques that you can use to create these. And so let me just fix my camera again. All right. Yes. So Instagram is a great place, and Dribble is another great place. You want to go to popular, you want to go to mobile or web design, for example, and you want to search for different time frames. It's all about presentation. And the thing about presentation, and sometimes just like a promo video, just like when you see a beautiful TV ad, it's not necessarily that the product is the best in the world. Sometimes the presentation is the best, right? Like Apple is so good at that, and Google or any of these big companies. And so it really elevates the product itself. And sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes the product itself is not that good, but the presentation is so good that it doesn't matter if the product is not that good, right? So that's kind of like what I want to focus on today. It's all about marketing. It's all about sort of like composing your images, kind of like taking a picture. If you're taking a picture, you want to compose it so that you're focusing on a subject, and then maybe you want to put some plants and keyboard, and so some decoration, if you will, so that it feels like a really nice composition. And so, yeah, like these are really good inspiration. My favorite inspiration is definitely Apple. As with most designers that I know, Apple is kind of like the go-to place to find inspiration, because Apple always, is ahead. And whenever they launch a new product, they're so good at presenting in really creative ways how their product is going to be consumed, and how they're going to be informing their customers in a very creative way. And they use a lot of techniques, and they use 3D, they use 2D, they use photography, design, animations, interactions. So Apple is a really interesting company, and we all take inspiration from Apple. Of course, as with inspiration, it's important to not follow too closely and kind of bring your own flavor and take it to the next level and design within the context of your product, rather than just copy and paste someone else's work, which is not the best thing to do in the industry. Unless you're beginning, unless you're not necessarily wanting to publish your work, that's fine. If you want to do it like a personal project and you're not showing anyone, or you're not benefiting from that, that's fine. You want to imitate someone else, that's fine. Everyone start with that. But eventually you want to kind of like just use sort of like a template, use the essence of it, use the principle and the techniques as well as the tools, and then create something that you feel is appropriate for your own product. Now, just speaking about Angle, we do have a website. This is our own product, by the way. And we have so many mockups, 4,060 different mockups of different directions and stuff like that. And we have a lot of templates. So for those who are interested, and it's also available as a library. So we're gonna be using that later on. So let's start with the design. Let's start with the presentation here. And so let me just make sure that I follow the comments and that I'm not missing any comment. All right. So as I mentioned before, we're going to start with a bunch of screens. Typically, let's say you have your design here, and you're going to pick a bunch of screens. You're going to copy those, and you're going to bring that to a presentation file. In the last live stream, we also did this little UI here, and it was really, fairly easy to do. And I showed most of the techniques to how to get started with a simple layout for iOS design. So we're gonna bring that here, and we also have about 4 screens from our actual app. And then what you want to do, ideally, you want to select all the screens, and you want to keep all the layers. And also you want to organize your layers really neatly. So for example, you want to make sure that each of these cards are well separated. And ideally, you want to make sure that things can be floating around. So you can create these really amazing effects, such as having this little card coming out of the UI, and this one as well, this one as well. And if you want to use transparency and glass morphism, that's even cooler. Such as this one, you can see that it adds a lot of dimension and flavor to your presentation, and people are going to be like, wow, this is interesting. So that's kind of like what you want to do. You want to organize your layers properly into components, so that you can play around with the perspective and the 3D transform. And once you're done organizing, you're going to bring the screen here, and I'm going to copy that. And speaking of resolution, so for YouTube, it's typically a 1920 by 1080. And you can always, because everything is in vector in Figma, you can always export to 2x and 3x if you need more pixel density. So for example, for Retina screens, but most likely this is going to be fine because in these social networks, they kind of reduce the file size and stuff like that. They're going to do some filtering and some resolution kind of change in cropping sometimes. So this is my resolution, and it's all about a ratio rather than like a specific resolution, although knowing that Dribbble use 800 by 600 can be useful. And Instagram, we can start with a 1080 by 1080 so that we have the same height as the one on Twitter and YouTube, so you can just crop one portion of it. And so that's going to make you save a lot of time rather than scaling things around, and that's going to be a bit more time consuming, and it can affect sort of the transformation of your designs. So we're going to start with 16 by 9, so 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to paste my screens. And like I said, three screens or 4 screens is fine, depending on kind of like the size, the dimension. So for example, on Instagram, you might be able to fit 2 screens. On Dribbble, you might be able to fit 3 screens. And well, same for Instagram as well. But on YouTube, you can fit more, depending if you want to have text on the left side. Okay. Because on YouTube, you want to have like the title and maybe the subtitle and some logos about what you're talking about. And also about, you want to show your face, because that's what works on YouTube. People want to see the human side of the content. So these are my screens. And, this is the most basic thing you can do. It's just like to put them around and centering it, right? So you want to center your content like this. If you want to go a little bit further, we're going to add some rounded corners. So we're going to set to, let's say, 90 or 40. And, it's a little bit better now. You want to make sure also that the background itself has some contrast next to your content. So, you can play around with the colors and, whatever works with you to make sure that the background contrasts well with your content. And, you've seen on some of these presentations, sometimes it's just like a very simple flat background. And, I'm noticing this cut drop shadow here. I cannot unsee it, but, it's very simple. A lot of us are like, oh, how do they do this? But in reality, it's just very, very simple. So simple background, bring your UI, and if it's a website, the same way, you're going to create a rectangle frame within the sort of bleed area of your content. And another thing you want to do to give even more separation between the UI and the background, you can use drop shadows. So drop shadows are really, really effective. because it creates a more kind of three-dimensional kind of presentation, just like a photography, you know, like when you take a photo, the shadow is so important to create this beautiful environment. So you can use something like, you know, 40, maybe 100 in blur, depending on the size of your screen, of course, and let's say 40 or 50 in the Y positioning. And sometimes you can have one of the screen have a bigger drop shadow to show sort of the main hero. So let me see, drop shadow here, I'm gonna set it to 50%, and maybe I can make it float a little bit more, so 200 in blur and 100 in Y position. And so you can see that this is kind of like a little bit of a hero. You can move your screens around, right? So to add a little bit of flavor. And yeah, you know, like there's so many ways to play around this kind of presentation. Another thing you can do is to use rotation. So for example, I can select all of these screens and I can set it to, let's say, 15 degrees angle. So depending on the amount of layers that you have, and then it's all about composition at this point. So maybe you want to show like this, and you want to move it like this, right? So depending on what portion that you want to show, it's a little bit slow right now because I have a lot of elements, but also I'm doing a live stream. And then you also want to make sure that your composition welcomes any elements of text. So for example, you know, if you have a subtitle and a title, you want to make sure that the composition can accommodate that. So the text itself, you can add drop shadows, you can set some accent color. Sometimes you can use blending mode and stuff like that. So in this case, I'm just going to move this a little bit down, right? And voila, that's it. You know, it's not that complicated. And already we have a pretty beautiful presentation, right? So again, all right. So this is pretty good. Now we can add some drop shadows, and let's talk about the background, because you can use a flat color, which is what a lot of people use. You also may want to make sure that your accent color here is nicely contrasting the background. So you can use black, you can use blue, you can use blending mode, or you can use a nice sort of accent color compared to the background. So for example, if the background is blue, maybe you want to use a light blue or a more, so you know, whatever works for you, or you can use a dark blue. For the background, we can also use a gradient. So the gradient, as I mentioned before, we have a lot of resources such as gradient. So these are pretty good gradients. Otherwise, we do share the gradients in our source files. So this is one of them. And you know, you can use this nice purple here. So that's pretty nice. And you know, we have different colors. Whatever works and contrasts well with the design of your app. So there you go. So many options, right? This is why I prefer to focus on the technique rather than just giving you everything and just, you know, you don't know what to do. You're just, you know, creating the screens yourself. But learning the techniques is going to show you how to fish, right? When you know how to fish, you can make money and you can start a career being a designer. Now, we have a lot of backgrounds here. Again, we're going to provide these to our customers, and there's so many nice elements, such as I can use these beautiful mountains here, or these beautiful mountains here. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to bring that here. So paste that. All right, boom. So let me bring that underneath everything. All right. So let me just, all right. There we go. Maybe to contrast better, the background should be darker. So I can use maybe a dark gradient like this one, or customize it to be like a night sky kind of deal, like this. And as a result, we're gonna need to make sure that this is using some sort of accent color. One thing that I love to use is also the eyedropper tool. So you don't need to like come up with a new color. You can just use the eyedropper and use any of the colors that are already available in your background, such as this pink here, the blue here, as long as you have a good contrast ratio and it's readable against the background. And pairing that with white or black, depending on the lightness of your background, can be a really great idea. So you can see, that's it. This is what we have so far, right? Do you guys like it? I think this is pretty cool. And like I said, I always promise that it's not too hard. So there you go. In just a few minutes, we were able to create a beautiful presentation, and we don't have to scratch too much our heads. And we can just use this on Instagram and just promote, what you're working on, right? So, and your friends are gonna be impressed. So that's the idea. All right. So what if we want to take this to the next level? Let's say you have components, right? And some of these glass layers, you can bring that outside of the screen. So I'm going to bring that outside of the frame. And now I'm going to move that around. And that adds even more flavor to my presentation. Especially if you have like a layer that is, let me just set the order here. Yeah, this should be above, right? So adds a little bit of flavor. You can move this around to create interesting effects, because I'm using a background blur. For those who don't know, this is a simple effect that is widely used in iOS. It's this background blur in effects in Figma, and you're going to be able to set the blur level and also the background color itself in terms of opacity. I can set it to 20 opacity to create a more glass see-through, or I can set it to darker or whatever color that you choose. And so this is what I have, and let's finish with this one and move this above. Hopefully it works. All right. All right, so yeah, maybe I forgot the content itself. I should bring the content as well. So let me bring this in. It has to be outside of the frame so that it's kind of like outside. And then we're gonna move this a little bit to bring this outside, to add a little bit of dimension like this. Look at this cool effect here. Sometimes you have some interesting results that are unexpected, such as this nice little glow that I really appreciate. This nice little glow, really appreciate it. The same with this. It's like taking a photo. Sometimes you're surprised because when you're composing, sometimes it's the subject, sometimes is the lighting that makes the whole thing better. But by playing around with things, that's when you're delighted by some of the results that you don't expect at all. And hopefully you will decide to explore, because your design can be unique. Okay, it doesn't have to be a copy of someone else's design. And the unicity, the uniqueness of your design is a result of you playing and bringing passion and time and into the details of your design, right? And the discovery of the process is what leads to these beautiful results that makes your design more unique. And so don't be afraid to explore yourself. Don't be afraid to spend hours and hours playing around with, oh, does this work or not? Maybe I should move this a few pixels down, instead of just looking at someone else's work and just doing exactly as that person, right? So it's important to to spend the time necessary to get those beautiful details that really sets your design apart. So as you can see here, this is totally different from my first try here, and that's fine because it's all improvisation. The background is different, the colors are different, the composition is different, and it's just with a lot of experimentation that you're gonna get something interesting. So let's do another one, but this time we're gonna apply some 3D perspective, right? All right. Yeah, this is kind of frozen. All right, so let me just duplicate this so that we have the same layers. Okay. How's everyone doing? So we have a bit of a spam here. Please don't spam, and if you're a moderator, please remove some of these spams. All right. So this is what I have so far. I'm gonna show you a really cool plugin, and the plugin, we're gonna go to the design community on Figma, and we're gonna search for Skew That. It's a really cool tool that I really like. You have to go to plugins, and then you have to install it. Okay. Once it's installed, we're gonna go back to our file, and we're gonna select all of these elements that we have that are outside of the frame and the frame itself. So hopefully this is good enough. Yeah, maybe I should have not brought that outside before doing this. But anyways, it's done. So I'm going to do command /, and this is where I can search for commands in Figma, and I'm gonna look for Skew That. Okay, select it, and then I'm gonna apply the angles. So look at that. I'm gonna move this around. Look at the beautiful effects. I'm doing 3D transform on my vectorize and layered, so that it's completely non-destructive. And you can see I can apply different angles to create a 3D effect, right? Whatever you feel looks really cool. So let's go with this one. Yeah, I can spend hours on this one. I mean, that's that's the life of a designer, right? Like you just spend hours transforming stuff until it makes sense. What can you do? It's just the nature of the art. So, all right, so we have a pretty good angle here. Unfortunately, like I said, I did not apply to this. So I'm gonna skip this part because it's definitely not the speed that's gonna allow me to retrace back to my steps. Okay, all right, so let's say we have something like this, and now it's all about composition. Right now the composition doesn't make too much sense, right? It's kind of like all over the place. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move things around until it makes sense. All right, so this is here, and maybe I wanna move this around a little bit. I wanna see the layer underneath So some silhouette of the beautiful artwork. This is fine. This looks great. This is a bit in the way of the text, also in the way of this screen. So maybe I can move this here, right? Think of it as how you could be organizing your desk. And don't tell me that you don't organize your desk, okay, please? Right? Like, think of it how you're going to be organizing your desk. Where are you going to put your screen? Where are you going to put your laptop? Where are you going to put your phone? And this is how you design. Okay, just apply the same principle until it makes sense. And so let me just move this outside of the frame. See, it's starting to make sense, right? Like I have proper space, proper dimension. Let me just fix my camera. Okay, so, all right. And now I want to make sure that I show this screen. Or I can also put this screen at the bottom right. Right? So look at that. It's pretty cool. And then I can play with some of these layers to make them more interesting even. So let's say I have these cards. And I'm going to bring that outside. Okay, I'm going to bring that in front. Okay. So now that I have 3 cards, I can essentially play with the 3D transform itself. Instead of doing it like this, which feels a little bit more two-dimensional, I can bring the cards underneath to be more like a 3D kind of deal. See, the card is here instead. So yeah, the speed is not in my favor, but you can see I can create really cool effects. Isn't that cool? I mean, look at that. You can have so much flavor. It's like going to Japan and eat ramen, you know, like a lot of flavor, okay? So there you go. All right. So now I create this beautiful 3D effect. I can push this to the right a little bit, and I can show a little bit more of my 3D cards that I'm really proud of. All right. Look at that. We have this beautiful kind of 3D-ish cards, and this is popping up. This can pop up a little bit more even. Right now it's using auto layout, and I can remove the auto layout so I can move the things around. And this can be underneath. So you're recomposing your design to make it feel like everything is in perspective, right? And you know, you can create really interesting effects by spending a lot of time like that. It feels, you know, it feels like a real 3D work instead of an actual 2D tool, right? And it's all about practice. You know, it's all about practice. So we went from here, just to give you the example, we went from this flavor to this flavor, which is completely different, and to this flavor. And it's all thanks to having our cards and using SkueDat, moving things around, and organizing things, and create really beautiful results. So the same with the background. I can change the background. So let's try another one. So maybe we can try this one. All right. The cool thing about this is a lot of people think I'm spending hours creating these presentations. In reality, I'm just spending like 15 minutes, and that's it, you know. Sometimes it can be deceiving. All right. There you go. Look at that. And the reason why it's so deceiving is because I'm using all of these amazing backgrounds that I already made from our team. And of course, the layout is already done. So if your layout is already done, then you don't have that much work left to do. You just need to present it. You know, you need to compose it, and you know, and then you can move your kind of background around. If things are layered, that's when you create more interesting flavors. You know, you can be more flexible, right? Like this. So yeah, there you go. A lot of flavor. And keep in mind that any of these presentations can be used on a website, can be used on an app, can use on the App Store screenshots, right? It's so flexible. And that's what I love. So I'm just going to set the contrast correctly. Using the eyedropper, I'm using the background color that is right here. And voila. That's it. Okay, let's take a look at more techniques to present your app. So let's say I have the screen here. We can also use mockups. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of mockups, either in 3D, either in vectors, either photos. A lot of people take photos of their phone and they put the screenshot on top of it. At Angle, we provide all of these mockups. So once you have the mockups and they're installed as a library, part of Figma, so you're gonna enable like Angle 3 library, Angle 3 library for Mac and iPad. So, and then you're gonna search for whatever, like MacBook Pro. And we have a lot of these devices that you can use, such as this one. And again, everything is in vector. So you can just like change the color yourself, or if you want to do some other things. And on top of that, since it's using library, I can just move and change the style of my mockup quite easily like this to a clay version, for example, or a clay dark, or I want to use like a left direction instead. So super easy to use, and then you put your screenshot of your website quite easily. Let me go for the iPhone. I'm going to search, and we make it super easy to look for whatever device. And we just updated with the new iMac and a new iPhone. So the iPhone purple version, we have it right here. Okay. You can also use this one. And then you create your composition. Now, if you want to apply your mockup screen, you're going to set, well, first of all, you're going to download our plugin that we create ourselves. It's called Angle. And it's right here. It's installed. You know, we have about 39,000 installed so far, so we're very proud of it. Now I'm going to go back here, and you just need to command select the screen layer, and then you're going to do, you know, command / search for apply, click here, and then choose the screen. So this has to be the name of your screen. And in this case, let's say I'm going to select the section screen and apply. So this is going to take a little bit of time because it has to do a transformation, and also, you know, the live stream is also not helping. So it's applying, and voila, boom. This is your screen, your presentation, and you can just apply the same layers, the same text, and then bring your own background. Look at how beautiful that is. I mean, everything's in layers. And there you go, a beautiful presentation using any of the mockups that we have or compositions that we have created for you, and then just applying the screens of your designs. All right. So let's bring another background here. Let's say really like this one. Copy this and bring that here. And I'm gonna put this underneath everything. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I mean, so easy to create a beautiful presentation for your product. You know, we can use one of these colors to set, you know, the text itself, and you can add some drop shadows, of course. So for example, you can set, let's say, a circle. The circle is going to use a linear gradient, and sorry, not linear gradient, it's going to be a radial gradient, and I'm going to use black. So like this and like this, and maybe I can set a little bit less opacity for the first black, and I'm going to put that underneath my phone to create some drop shadow, some dimension. Look at how cool that is, right? Like it brings out even more the phone by doing this technique. So look at before and after, right? And that's cool. And you know, if you have some elements underneath, it's even better. So many things you can do. And of course, you can create your website, right? You know, if you like whatever, any of these presentations, you can use it for your website. And instead of using this text here, I'm going to use the proportions of a website. And a website normally has a menu, has a title, description, button, and some text. So I'm going to bring these two elements, and I'm going to bring that here. Design doesn't have to be hard. Okay, I know a lot of people make it really scary, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to take hours neither. Look at that. This looks like a website now. You just need to align things correctly and move this right here. Move my shadow a little bit. And of course, I need to change my text. So let's say I'm gonna use this, or yeah, I think this is fine. And of course the text. So instead of black, I'm gonna use white. Look at that. I have a website. I have the top portion of my website. All I needed to do was to create my presentation, my background, whatever. Like I'm presenting an app. Let's say I'm an iOS developer. I want to show a beautiful presentation of my app so that people want to download it, and that's it. You know, I use a device. I use this technique. I use the other technique. Create a beautiful presentation. I add my menu here. I add a beautiful background, my little logo, my menu, a title, description, and button. And I have my website, right? Like it doesn't have to be hard. And most of these things are already available, and it's already a well-known standard in web design or in iOS design. So you don't have to spend a ton of time researching. So I hope you appreciate this. If you enjoy these sessions and these techniques, give a like, please, and also, you know, give me a comment so that I know that I'm doing something cool. And so I can focus on this sort of content in the future as well. So let's go with the decoration. Okay, this is really fun. Decoration. I'm gonna go to the community and I'm gonna search for confetti. So this is a really cool plugin called Confetti. You can just generate confetti. Let me just use it for you. We're really spoiled, you know, as designers nowadays, because a lot of these tools and resources were not available like when I first started designing. But today we have so many places to learn, so many courses, so many, even these live streams that I'm doing right now is what allows a lot of people to kind of like create something quickly and efficiently. So now I'm going to select this and search for confetti. Boom. And then it's going to randomize. You can customize. I don't know. I'm just going to go with the default settings and run. Whoops. Wait a second. This is not what I want, but it's kind of cool. Okay, this is not what I want. All right. This is fun. I thought they generated. I thought they generated. Wait. Confetti. Or maybe I had to sort of create my own confetti first. So let's create our own confetti first because I thought it was generating the confetti itself. But yeah, you know, if you want, I can show you how to generate a confetti right here. So I'm going to use the shape, the polygon shape. So what is cool about this is that you can set, whoa, what's going on here? All right, select here. You can change the radius by clicking on the little circle like this. And we can use one of the gradients. I don't know. I'm going to use this one, let's say. And you can change the number of count. See, I have like a hexagon or a pentagon, a square. And so once this is done, you can even add like maybe a stroke that is white, that is using maybe overlay. Does not seem to work correctly. Okay, soft light and maybe some transparency. There you go. And so now I'm going to use confetti. And so I'm going to run that. And then boom, it creates these randomized position for whatever element that I have. And you know, I can use like a little square, a rectangle with rounded corners. Again, using maybe another gradient. Maybe not this gradient, it doesn't work. But let's say this one. And then again, confetti, randomize, boom. You can have a lot of fun with this. So this is confetti. Let's try another one. Let's try another one. I'm gonna go to community again. This time I'm gonna use a looper, which I love. And I'm gonna install this, go back to presenting your app. And this time I'm going to create a sinus. So first of all, I'm gonna use the pen tool. And the pen tool, you know, we can sort of like create a little sinus here, like this. I don't know why it's moving around, so, but it does. And so I have my little wave here, which is a simple outline. And then we're going to, we have a lot of comments. Let me just catch up a little bit. All right. So, all right, so I'm going to apply some sort of gradient here. Like this one. And then let me show you the magic. So I'm going to use looper So again, you can customize a lot of things here. So how many count that you want? Let's start with 200. How much you want to change the position when it iterates itself. So it's essentially a loop. For those who programs understand that loop is like creating multiple duplicates of the same element many times. In this case, 200 times. And for each of those elements, we're going to change the Y position by 10 and the rotation by -1. The same for the scale, the width and the height -10. The opacity from this to this, I believe. Or we can just set it like 30%. And so you can also change the stroke and the colors and whatever, but we're gonna start with this and then create, and then boom, look at that. Look at how interesting that is. So it creates this awesome pattern for you. And you know, if you want to have more iteration count, it's gonna create even more interesting results. You can have more rotation, or let's say you don't want to move this, maybe by 1. Oh, sorry. All right. So a lot of patterns that you can create, and these patterns can be using any of these. You know, I guess it works pretty much the same way as Confetti, except that you have a lot more customization, such as the rotation, the opacity, and stuff like that. So for example, I can use this one, and I can change the rotation by 2, and maybe I'm going to change the size a little bit. And let's try this. So, whoa, don't have more? 200. I don't know why it only creates once. I don't know if I did something wrong here, but okay, maybe it's not moving enough for me to see it. Okay, well, I can't troubleshoot this live, but play around with it and you can create like these really cool results. So let me start another one. And yeah, it's also inside auto layout. So sometimes it can be a bit of confusing if you don't understand what's going on, if you have auto layout around. So I'm gonna put this back here and then this one and set this to 500. Hopefully it works this time. There you go. So the more instances that you have, the more it can be even interesting. And you can play with the rotation as well. So maybe -10. There you go. You know, obviously it doesn't always work, and whatever result that you're gonna find, it can be pretty random. So that's Looper. Let me just take this outside of the auto layout. Maybe I should just disable auto layout, because in this case I can just move things around. All right. Let me just fix these little sticks that looks weird. Okay, so that's Looper. And we're gonna take a look at the waves and blobs as well. So waves, we're gonna go to the community and we're gonna search for waves plugins, install it, and also blobs, install it. Now I'm gonna go back, and then I'm going to generate my blobs. So blobs. So you know, you can customize the complexity and the contrast. And when you make the blob, it looks like this. So this is where you can create these backgrounds here. So I can even copy the style if I want. So for example, I can use this one, copy, select this fill, and then paste on this one. So the way that we do here is that we have some sort of like a blur element that goes on top, that kind of oh no, not this one. I mean, I can just duplicate that blob itself, so Command D, and make it slightly smaller. And then I'm going to use an effect. This time it's going to be a layer blur. And let's say a blur of 40. So this kind of fixed the cone issue in the middle. There you go. So now I have a beautiful kind of 3D-ish bubble using this Blobs plugin and a duplication of this layer plus layer blur plus angular gradient. And now I can use this as part of my background to create a really cool effect. Another thing that we're using a lot is the wave. So we can use the waves plugin. Okay. So now you can see this is the preview of the wave. And you know, you can move it around like this. Right? And then create. There you go. So the waves can be used to create these patterns, and then the rest is about applying the gradient itself, which is what we're doing right here. And I believe we also have some inner shadow here, some transparency. But yeah, we just spent a lot of time creating these results, but you can see this is a start, and this is a good start. And once you have these elements together and you compose them and you move them around, then you have results like these. Now, of course, a lot of patience, and don't expect everything to just magically look good. That's just the life of a designer. But you know, I think this is a good starting point for you, right? Like you open this document, you analyze it, you look at the layers, you look at how we do the gradients, the blurring, you know, like how we're composing things, how we're setting the colors. And then you learn from it. And then you just customize it. You use the techniques, and you become really, really good at it at some point. So yeah, super flexible how you can present things. And you know, for Instagram, you can just crop. So for example, you don't need the text sometimes, or you can just move things around so that you can crop it within the size of Instagram or Dribble, depending on the aspect ratio. But this is what we have so far, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will be providing the source file if you want to play around with it and you know, get the backgrounds that we have, the mockups that we have. And I encourage you to check out Angle if you want to have these beautiful devices. We have 4,000 different angles of these devices, and the mockups, the text, you know, use that as a template and bring your own flavor. So I'm gonna be taking some questions from the audience. Again, thank you so much for following, and really appreciate the support. All right, so let's see, we have more questions. Is this Adobe XD? No, it is not. Adobe XD is very similar to Sketch and to Figma, so you can essentially do pretty much all the same things, and Angle also work for Adobe XD as well as Sketch. So if you're a Sketch user, you're going to be able to follow exactly the same techniques, minus some of the plugins. Maybe Skew is not available there, but Sketch has Confetti, has Angle, has like very much the same elements. And we have Angle, which is also available for all of these other platforms. So you can see Sketch, Figma, and XD. We have the library that is available for Sketch, Figma, and XD as well. And so, yeah, like you're going to be able to follow this regardless of the design tool that you're using. All right, so let's see, we have more questions. The assets are going to be downloadable after the stream, maybe a couple days or one day after the stream. I'm going to be putting that in the description. It's going to be uploaded on the website so that you can watch it from our platform, which we have an iOS app for, and we have the website for, and we track your progress, and it's just beautiful. And we also have a lot of downloads, a lot of resources, and discounts for Angle. So, you know, we spoil our customers a lot for DesignCode. Do I work with Android Studio? So we have a Flutter course for Android, and so we do use Android Studio to create an app for Android. And you know, we love both platforms. It's just that right now, most of us are more expert on iOS rather than Android, even though we do have a couple courses on Android as well. And we feel that both platforms are really, really hot at the moment. We like Android. It's just that it's hard not to love Apple when they have everything. They provide everything. They spoil you with everything, and they also, you know, give you a lot of inspiration. The work that they give and they do is so good for, you know, it's like a gold mine for inspiration. Yeah, the dessert wallpaper is really cool. Let me just zoom on that one. Um, you know, obviously we take a lot of inspiration from Apple. This is from, you know, the dessert wallpaper, but we kind of like did it with our own flavor and our own colors using vectors. So you can see we have different colors. We have the stars, and yeah, it's really fun, and it's all vector, so you can play around with it. Difference between Figma and Sketch. So what I would say is that Figma has a built-in community, so that's really good. And they have version control, they have real-time collaboration, all built in. And I know a lot of people are non-believers in these, but let me say that this is what makes or break a design tool in terms of in 2021. A lot of designers choose Figma for these specific reasons, for the fact that you can save your files in the cloud, the fact that you can share your file with anyone in the team, regardless if they're on Windows or Mac, the fact that you can collaborate and comment, and even they have a new FigJam where you can annotate in real time with your team, makes meetings and designing together so much easier. You know, if you think of Figma as kind of like Sketch plus Dropbox plus, you know, Abstract plus like a bunch of plugins that we rely on in Sketch, but all built in Figma. So that's what makes Figma so good compared to the other design tools. Not saying that the other design tools are not good. In fact, you know, I think we are really, really spoiled as designers because I can't complain about the market that we're in anymore. We used to have really bad tools for user interface design. And when I say bad, I mean inappropriate because I used to love Photoshop. It's just that for user interface design, Photoshop does not make any sense, which is why Adobe came up with their own user interface design tool called Adobe XD. But nowadays we have such good tools, and that's why you know, I think all of these three design tools are perfect, are really, really good options. It's just that my preference, and for most designers that I know, they would prefer Figma. All right. Thank you so much for all the great comments. What does contrast do in the Blobs plugin? It looks like Blobs are default cis. Yeah, so it's just a default color for any shape that you create. And the color has nothing to do with the Blob plugin. It's just, it goes with the default color, and that's all. And you just apply your own gradients and colors. Yeah, Figma gives you CSS, Sketch gives you CSS. I'm not sure about Adobe XD, but I suspect that even if they don't provide, they have a plugin for it. So all of these three design tools have plugins that really close the loops. All right. So that's it for today. And thank you so much, everyone, for following this live stream. And if you enjoyed the content, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So, bye-bye.